Sports. It's a word that resonates with all of us. From Messi's historic World Cup campaign to Kohli's chase at the MCG. Sports has encapsulated billions of people around the world and has provided us with a greater sense of belonging. But it also acts as a platform for us to share our beliefs. Today, we are going to explore the implications of this very platform sport provides. Firstly, we will talk about the ability of sports to unite. Then, we will go on to talk about sports washing. And lastly, we will touch upon the impact of politics on sports.
Every sports day, PDP is engulfed with the cheers of alphaites, betaites, and Ramites. Cheer in their houses, pushing them to victory. It's a feeling of pride, belief, and most importantly, unity. This is the power sports possesses, or power to unify people. Sports bridge gaps and create a shared sense of camaraderie between people, bringing together people from diverse backgrounds in the pursuit of a collective passion, allowing us to make our world a better place. Take the example of Afghanistan, a country ruined by terrorism and violence. Peter Anderson, the first Western coach of the Afghani cricket team, noted how cricket is the sole source of pride for the Afghani people. When people used to think about Afghanistan, the only things that came to mind were the Taliban and terrorism, but no more. Cricket provided the opportunity to change people's perception of Afghanistan and transform it into a nation of cricketing pride. A nation where children are inspired by athletes such as Rashid Khan and Ramanullah Gulbaz. Sports diplomacy is when countries use sports as a means to reach a peaceful resolution. An example of this was in 2008, when Turkey and Armenia used the FIFA World Cup to unite solving disputes. The Turkish president accepted the Armenian president's invitation to watch the FIFA World Cup match between the two nations. This marked a milestone in Turkish-Armenian relations, as it was the first time a Turkish head of state had ever visited Armenia. This single football match paved the way for the Zurich Protocols in 2009, which aimed to improve diplomatic ties between the two nations. These efforts to mend ties continue even today, where the Armenian and Turkish football teams faced off again in the Euro qualifiers of 2024, and the countries are continuing to normalize and build relations. The ability of sports to unite doesn't solely happen between nations. It also unites people globally under the single cause. Taking the knee is often an action taken by sports players to raise awareness about racial discrimination. A recent example of this is when football players from Liverpool FC joined forces with the Scottish football team and the cricket teams of West Indies and England to support the Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of George Floyd's killing. These instances show how sports have brought people together and to improve relations between individuals and countries alike to create a better world for us all. But while sports can unify, that same spirit of sports could also be used maliciously through sports washing.
How many of you watched the Football World Cup in Qatar in 2022? Though I'm not the most ardent football fan, I was one of millions worldwide that did. However, leading up to the final, it wasn't the prospect of an entertaining match, but an article on the horrific story preceding the tournament that consumed my attention. While Argentina eventually won the tournament, the real winners were Qatar and FIFA, walking away with billions in revenue. Human Rights Watch claimed that for the construction of stadiums, hotels, and roads, 2 million migrants in Qatar were forced into manual labor, and 6,500 migrants at least were killed. This is the perfect example of sports washing. The use of the popularity of a sport to redirect the public attention away from unethical conduct. This was notoriously used by Hitler in the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. By hosting the Olympics, the Nazis received a platform to demonstrate their might and gain international prestige. During the Games, Germans were told not to discriminate against Jews and maintain a guise of internal harmony and equality, when in fact, Jews were widely persecuted at this time. However, once the tournament finished, this persecution of Jews resumed, and the Nazis' atrocities were only uncovered several years later. Similarly, Saudi Arabia is using this tactic of sports washing to overshadow their own human rights record by spending $6 billion on international sports deals since 2021, spending billions on a golf tournament, Live Golf, and just this weekend hosting F1 races. This spectacle draws attention away from instances such as that brutal murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a prominent example of that tough crackdown on the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression, especially in the form of dissent. Through sports washing, Saudi Arabia hopes to change their image internationally to that of a modern, peace-loving nation. Sports washing has and will continue to become more and more frequent, raising questions about the future of Indian sports too. Bodies like the BCCI, the Indian Wrestling Federation, and Indian Olympic Committee have also been accused of unethical practices. But the problem doesn't just stop here. While sports washing is perennial, the issues with Indian sporting bodies extend to a systemic issue deep-rooted in Indian society.
As Indian sports grow, discrimination is still prevalent along with social problems in the sporting community. Take, for example, the wrestlers' protests in India. President of the Wrestling Federation of India, lawmaker and politician Brij Bhushan Singh was charged with sexual misconduct on 4 occasions. This caused several Indian wrestlers to protest and speak out against Singh. However, his position was filled by one of his associates, highlighting his indirect control of the organization. This led to renowned wrestlers such as Bajrang Punya, Sakshi Malik, and Vinesh Fogart returning honorable awards such as the Padma Shri and not competing for our nation anymore. Imagine if this is happening at the highest level. Think of all the other athletes without a big platform who may be facing similar or worse conditions, who are unable to gain justice or recognition. The implications of this continue to remain shocking. Not only does it show us the flawed administration in our country regarding sports, but also depicts how politics and sports can often be intertwined. When high-profile athletes refuse to represent our country, we portray an image to the outside world. And is this the image that we want to send out? According to the Telegraph, sports federations have turned into personal fiefdoms of political parties. They use sports as a tool to spread propaganda and public sentiments, often leading to increased harmful nationalism. Imagine what would happen to our future generations of athletes. Would children even be incentivized to pursue sports if the very people they look up to quit? Is this the India we want to grow up in?
As sports become more globalized and popular, these issues are further uncovered. It's important to remember that we don't have to live in a black and white world. It's possible for large corporations to generate revenue without exploiting and monopolizing and taking advantage of athletes. It's possible for us to influence the ethical practices in sports while still cheering on our favorite team in the football match we want to watch. It's possible for countries to popularize sport without succumbing to political pressure. Sports is and has always been the greatest unifying force. And it is up to countries, corporations, and citizens like us to ensure that it remains so. Thank you.